Good morning, everybody. My name is Ronan Murphy, and I am the Chief Executive of Gervisibility. Thank you to everybody for joining today's webinar, where we are going to look at implementing machine learning and artificial intelligence at scale within your organization to help with a lot of the data governance challenges organizations are dealing with. I have two excellent presenters joining me today for this webinar. We have Leonid from QBS, who's the Chief Executive. Leonid, thank you for joining us today. And QBS are one of our strategic distributors for the Nordics region, the UK and Ireland. And also my CTO, Derek Cutsey, who is going to talk through some of the applications of ML for helping with data governance, and he's going to do a live demo for you. So before I jump into the data governance conversation, I think it's important to discuss for a moment some of the challenges that we're facing from an information security standpoint. And the COVID-19 outbreak, it has changed the way we operate. It's caused global business disruption, and it's caused major disruption in the global cybersecurity landscape. We're observing huge changing patterns of behavior from threat actors and cyber as criminals, and this is starting to be well documented. And to be clear, it's not unique to just this major global pandemic. Cyber criminals have been using these type of notable global events for as long as I can remember to wreak havoc. So it's important that as organizations change the way they operate, as users start working from home, that organizations are more cognizant than ever of how they protect their users, their access, and their data. And I think it's interesting to start off with a quote from Gartner, where they've said that companies have to embrace privacy compliance technologies. The vendors who leverage AI and ML will be in a position to turbocharge their privacy readiness. And when we look at the industry forces that are affecting organizations' appetite for information security, InfoSec technologies, and privacy, there's many. We've broken some of the interesting ones down here. At the forefront, we've got the regulatory environment. We're seeing macro issues with GDPR, the California Consumer Privacy Act, which are making a lot of organizations who typically didn't have compliance mandates now look at data and look at reasons why they need to get a handle on that data and protect it and understand it. But you also have, from an industry vertical perspective, you have some very interesting changes in the regulatory landscape. For example, in the automotive sector, you have TISAX, which is looking at how organizations classify, secure, collect, process data for that sector. In healthcare, you've got regulation like HIPAA being redefined to look more at the data level. You've got a specific regulation for suppliers to the US military, and it goes on and affects pretty much every industry. So the regulatory mandate is changing quite a lot, and it's making organizations stand up, look at their data, and want to understand how they collect it, secure it, and process it to maintain compliance. You then have another really interesting challenge, and it's the sheer volume of data that's now being created. It's an interesting statistic that's thrown out there, but we have created more data in the last 2 years than we have from the dawn of humanity until 2018. And this data is now being created in all sorts of different locations. It's been created by your users. It's been created in the cloud. It's been created in hybrid cloud environments. The network as we know it is now gone. and the attack surface, which is often referred to in the cybersecurity circles, is now much broader. And traditionally, when organizations are targeted or hacked, it's to get the data. So the explosion in data has meant that for organizations to control it, to protect IP, to maintain compliance has become a significant challenge. You then couple that with the ability to consume cloud services from either Amazon or IBM or Microsoft. It becomes an even bigger challenge because organizations can spin up servers very quickly, very efficiently. They can migrate data into the cloud. They have new ways of working. This has even been expedited by COVID-19 as organizations look to cut costs, yet drive operational efficiency by leveraging the cloud. And whether you keep your data within your network, your private network, or you keep it in the cloud, the security challenges remain the same. And it also exacerbates the challenges that you have around the protection of that data, the understanding of that data, ensuring that that data is hardened and protected. And then you have probably another really important consideration. It's the sheer volume of attacks that we're now seeing, the increase. With COVID-19, we're seeing huge amounts of COVID-related cyber type attacks, with spear phishing and orchestrated campaigns, which are geographically targeted at different regions. And all of these are designed to compromise user details, to access data, to steal intellectual property. So it's becoming a significant challenge. And as the data footprint increases, the ability to understand that data, have visibility of that data, and make informed, important decisions with the data, with all of these attacks taking place, is even more challenging for organizations. So companies are looking at implementing data loss prevention. They're looking at ways to protect that data and understand what it is they should do with it. But unfortunately, what we've witnessed over the last 10 years in the industry is that a lot of these data loss prevention programs fail. And the reason they fail is just the sheer volume of data. And when we looked across our customer base, we conducted a survey of different organizations of different size and different scale. And some of the figures that are recorded are staggering. In 62% of companies, over 1,000 companies had stale user accounts, meaning they had insecure access to that specific data. And 59% of those companies were suffering from stale data or redundant, obsolete, and trivial data. And that's a huge challenge. It affects companies' ability to securely move to the cloud. It affects companies' ability to adhere to regulatory mandates and also to securely identify where their intellectual property is. 57% of companies had over 1,000 sensitive files exposed. The average company had more than 500,000 files exposed. And in 19% of companies, all of their sensitive information was available to all employees. And that's due to companies allowing employees to export from their structured environment, allowing employees to share data across the estate, whether it's through file sharing and collaboration tools such as SharePoint or Dropbox or OneDrive. And then in 55% of companies, over 1,000 folders were open to every employee. On average, in the large companies, they had access to over 17 million files, and 28% of folders were open to every employee. And this was across every industry sector. Some industry sectors had more intellectual property than others and more sensitive documentation, but the access and the challenge with data was very, very similar. We looked at energy and utilities, we looked at government, manufacturing, retail, finance, and while they all adhered to similar are regulatory mandates at the macro level, GDPR, CCPA, but then individual mandates, which are now focusing very much on data. And even when we drill down into the pharmaceutical sector, the identification of intellectual property, the protection of it, the implementation of data loss prevention, cloud migration, the challenge is significant. So if we look at how organizations do it now, you've got two types of data. You've got your legacy data, and that's your data which sits in your file shares, your legacy data repositories, and organizations will typically go and they will try to classify that data. They identify where the data is. They build rules, regex, dictionary lookup. They try and tune it to understand where the data is, and it'll help with your governance, your redundant, obsolete, and trivial data, and to a degree, understanding IP and data loss prevention. You then have a second challenge. That challenge is the data you are creating in real time. So it's emails, Word documents, exports out of your structured environment from maybe your Salesforce or your SAP environments, and often that data is used to collaborate internally between your employees. And that new data is the classification of that is typically a separate type product. And that for that to work effectively, you need to decide on classification. Is it internal? Is it external? Is it private? And this can become really challenging for organizations, because if you have many compliance mandates, before a user can send an email, before they can save a document, they have to make a lot of determinations on what actually is the document they're saving or they're sending. Is it, does it fall under GDPR in terms of personal identifiable information, or does the document contain financial information which is regulated under a different mandate and should have a different classification field? So with manual classification at the user level, you need to decide on classifications, you need to train users, you need to constantly quality assess their ability to do it accurately. And then you need to try and integrate this with various data loss prevention technologies such as ForcePoint, Trend Micro, or Azure Information Protection. So you've got two products. You've professional services with both products. You can have difficulty managing both products from an accuracy standpoint. There tends to be high failure rates on your ability to successfully implement data loss prevention. And you also have an expensive solution because you have two products, two sets of professional services. So what we're going to show you is how we have consolidated the tech stack and eliminated the requirement for two products by using our Gervisibility synergy platform. And what that looks at is your ability to classify all of your legacy data, your ability to classify all of your new data, and to classify that with one product, but it's powered by machine learning and artificial intelligence. So by embracing AI and ML, it effectively allows organizations to improve accuracy across their estate, realize a significant return on investment due to the ability to do this at scale, get much faster results, and have the ability to leverage machine learning at scale. And then that will help with the regulatory mandates, with the ability to deal with stale, redundant, obsolete, and trivial data, to look at your IP and understand how to secure that, to visually tag documents, and then to successfully implement data loss prevention mandates. So I'm going to hand over to Derek. He's going to show you this type of technology solution working in real time and show you how organizations can embrace machine learning at scale throughout your organization. Derek, over to you.
Thank you very much, Ronan. So Ronan has described a lot of the challenges that companies face with unstructured data. And we have recognized that the staff in the company are probably the best asset for handling and protecting data, but they're also the weakest point if they lack the tools, or they lack the knowledge, or they lack the understanding of good data practices. So what we have done is we have expanded our Gervisibility system to cover both of those worlds that Ronan described. You've got your legacy data, which we scan and we classify automatically, but to incorporate the staff members, the interaction with the data, we have also built agent technology, which runs inside some of the more popular office automation software platforms. So what I'd like to show you today is I'm going to start Microsoft Word. So the very popular application, as you all know. And if I were to open an arbitrary document, this is a document, it has some German language in it, but it's a software development contract. And what we have done is we have added an icon to the toolbar, which notes that this document is not classified. This is a standard scenario. Users might create a brand new document, or they might open an old document, or something that was emailed to them. So assuming for my demo that this is sensitive information, there are various dangerous activities that the users can get involved with here. One is continuing to work with this document unclassified. So to stop that, we have set the software, which can be configured, the Gervisibility software, to be very strict on the activities of the user. And I'm acting as the user. So if I were to, for example, try and save this document, you will see that I'm immediately notified that I'm not able to save it until it's classified. This could be configured to be a log message in the background silently, which is a good way to start. Or it could also be configured to be a warning, which allows the user to continue. But for the demo, we've made it very strict and we've blocked this action. We do the same thing for print, but basically we're forcing the user to classify the document. And this is where it gets interesting. So let me show you. If I click on this icon, I get the option to classify this document according to classification levels that have been predefined and loaded onto the system. And you can see these are completely customizable. This can all be supported in multi-language as well. So for example, a user might be faced with the choice of having these three, but there might be a lot more. There might be 6, 7. It might be different for each department. The staff member may have moved from a different department and be confronted with a new set of classification values that they've never seen before, or they've just had minimal training on. So that's a challenge. Which do they choose? But then there's more. There's the compliance as well. Ronan mentioned a number of different compliance regulations. The company needs to be compliant. So you need to select from one of these that accurately matches what this document is all about. But again, you're challenging the staff member to know the right level of classification. So what we have done is to help out, to augment this and to make it a lot more powerful, is we have used our machine learning system and we have read the contents of the document, either previously during a scan or while the user is editing it. And we have recommended certain values for these tags. Now, this is super valuable. Imagine you're a staff member and you're not sure about the difference between PI and PII for GDPR. So we're saying PI is 97% that it's a PII, that should be chosen. That's great, because the staff member can either use the suggested values directly, or if they have a different opinion on the document, they can select something differently. So there's an important mechanic here. We've got the suggestions, which are helping new staff members or people that are unsure or saving time. But we're also developing an opinion of what the document is about using machine learning. So the staff member is, if it's configured, is able to select different values. So for example, if I were to select these different values, which are slightly different to what's recommended, and I save that, you can see the document is modified, visual tagging is added, header and footer, this is configurable, the wording can be changed, the fonts, the color, the position, whether it's visible or not. We also modify the metadata of the file, which means this information is carried along with the file. But now this document is classified. And that means that it can now safely be handled either by other staff members who understand the policies, or by data loss prevention, DLP platforms that can read the metadata. We also integrate to other DLP platforms as well. This has made a big difference to this document and is the benefit of classifying documents. But we've helped out with that machine learning backup. But what we've done as well, just before I close Word, is we've also developed an opinion of what the document is about. And we've audited the fact that we recommended a PII value. We recommended it to be an internal classification, but the user has selected different values. And there's interesting information carried in that difference, because the user, if they are an expert user, we can use that difference in opinion to train the machine learning model automatically. And that's very powerful, and it's a differentiator. We have built a proprietary mechanism under the covers of the software that uses a completely anonymized mechanism to reclassify the document or relearn and retrain itself on the fly using normal day-to-day activity that's happening in Word, in PowerPoint, Excel, Outlook, and other applications. That's very powerful. There's no data scientists involved. It's automatically happening as people normally classify documents. So that's very powerful. But that's Word. Saving and printing is probably the most dangerous activities with Word. What about Outlook? Outlook is a very powerful application. Outlook allows you to email documents to any target, and that can be dangerous. Imagine data information being sent out. So let me start a new email. And this is the last application I will demonstrate, but here's a new email. It's not classified, classification not set. I will select an external email address on purpose. I will type a subject, and I will paste some text that I copied from that previous document. Let's assume this is a very sensitive document, email that I've created. If I attach even more sensitive documents, the Gervisibility software recognizes that and promotes the sensitivity or the classification level automatically. So I tried to send this document out. This is a risky activity. So as a user, as a staff member, I press send, but no, I can't. This is an intervention based on the sensitivity of the data and the target address that is used, has been used. We have set this for super strict, to be super strict for the demo. So it's blocking this, it cannot be sent, it has to be classified. Okay, so as a staff member, I go back to my classification. Again, you will see that I'm being helped, I'm being assisted, but under the covers, this assistance is also being used to log what I'm actually choosing. So let's go with confidential, because this is a sensitive email. I will save that. You can see that, again, there are visual marks added. We also add an invisible mark to the header as well. This document is now classified, this email, but it's still a dangerous combination. It's confidential, and I'm trying to send it outside the organization. So another block happens, and this is now based on the classification level of the document itself. This is very valuable. This has stopped this information going out. So consider those two things that have happened. Firstly, I was blocked to use this email until it's classified. Secondly, I've classified it, so that's a big step forward. But now I'm trying to do something which is even more dangerous, and that's send classified data outside the organization. So I'm blocked. So for the purpose of this demo, let's assume that I am a persistent user, and I'm going to find a way around this. I'm going to delete the document, the email from confidential to internal. This is generally a dangerous thing, and we can even block this in our software if it's configured like that. But for the demo, I'm allowing it. So now we've dropped the classification, and I'm trying to send it again. Remember, it's still an external email address. Now I'm getting a different message. This is a warning to say, would you like to continue, yes or no? So I found a way to get this email out. But what I've also done is I've generated a lot of audit logging in the background. We have tracked, using our software from Gervisibility, we've tracked who's doing this, what email, who they're sending it to, the device, the subject, the CC address, the to address, and so on. So I can continue if I want to, and I can send this document. Just an important thing about this is that, again, if this classification is different, we can learn from that. But in this particular case with Outlook, we've stepped in and we've blocked activities, dangerous activities. And again, this can all be configured. It can be logging silently, it can be warning users, or it can be blocking activity. We can also configure it to disallow that declassification, because that's really a very risky thing as well. So that's a quick demo of how the software works in Word and in Outlook. It shows you how we step in and we are able to apply protection to the particular document itself and to the activities of the user. So if I can just quickly go on, we've generated a lot of interesting information by doing what we've just done now. So we have a number of reports built into the system that can allow you to see a high-level synopsis, a summary of what has happened in the last week or month in different departments. For example, blocked emails, 54 blocked email incidents. This is just a snippet from one of the reports showing some blocked emails. This is where an email has been blocked, just as we saw now a few seconds ago, where I tried to send a dangerous email. Again, we've got a very detailed auditable report data behind this, which can be used and is used extensively by our resellers to do even more advanced professional services. But as an end user, as a company running Gervisibility, you immediately have access to this information to say, okay, wow, 54 blocked emails in 1 week. Hang on, what's going on in that department? You can go and have a look and see exactly, is that one person? Is it the whole department? Because that means something very different in terms of training and data governance and general data hygiene. Do those people need to be trained? Is there a problem with the different classification levels in that department? Another thing we do, of course, is the de-escalations. I did one of these. I dropped it from confidential to internal so that I could send my email. That's dangerous. You can see exactly who's doing that. You can block it as well with our software, but it's interesting to know if you do allow it, where is it happening and why is it happening? What emails are affected? What information is actually going out? What's being declassified? It's great to be able to see this kind of de-escalation. Are people demoting documents for some obscure reason and why? Another last piece of report I want to show you is the misclassifications. This touches on the point I made about differences of opinion. Because we have machine learning, and that machine learning is now very mature, we have worked on that for a number of years now. That machine learning model has got a very good opinion of what's in the document. Is this a sensitive document? Is it a GDPR document containing PII? Is it a document that is relevant for that automotive industry, the TISAX standard that Ronan referred to? We can customize and learn different compliance standards, and we've done that already. We support a number of them out of the box. So our software doesn't need to learn your data. It starts off with a very good baseline, and that baseline allows us to say, we think people in the finance department are misclassifying emails consistently. What's going on there? And you can see it with this report. It's really powerful. We're opening up how people are working with unclassified data. Okay, so that's the right-hand side of Ronan's diagram, where it's the live data, the new data, the data being created on the fly. But remember, we're also scanning the old legacy data, the left-hand side of Ronan's diagram. And this is a screenshot of our dashboard on our server. And you can see here that we've scanned a number of documents. They've been classified. They've got classification levels, which are customizable to the company, to your company. They've also got relevant compliance data highlighted. In this particular case it's PII. So that's probably GDPR. That's very valuable for a GDPR audit or GDPR compliance. Where are all my documents with PII information? That's a very useful answer to get if you're trying to be GDPR compliant. We've then got extra information about the files as well as the permissions. The permissions touch on what Ronan was mentioning about data being exposed to a wide set of users. And we've seen some scary statistics about that. Here you can actually see, if I click through, you can see the file and who can see that document, who's got access, everybody that you can see that has access and what access they've got, or given a user or a group, what documents can they see. And this is all information that is consolidated onto the same platform. Remember, we support multiple languages as well. We've built the system with security by design by default. The data is all anonymized inside the platform. So what we've done is we have built it to use natural language processing across multiple languages. We've built different master document sets. We have pre-trained the documents, using the documents. We have pre-trained the models so that they can work off from day one, out of the box. You can get some really good classifications. But remember, there's that mechanism which allows our software to learn as people interact with documents, which means that this system is starting off good, very good, in fact, but it's even getting better over time as people are interacting with the documents. And that's the best type of learning, because it's on the ground, practical day-to-day activity around your documents in your organization. So a complex slide, which has got a lot of things on it, but it's just to show you that we have got integrations to AWS, which Ronan mentions. We can do Google Apps, Google Drive, G Suite. We can also support the Azure cloud. We can support cloud services as well from Microsoft. We also support internal repositories of data, such as file shares, Microsoft Exchange, storage servers that are full of documents. We can scan those. We can tag the documents so that if they're ever opened again by another person, they will be protected. And then finally, there's the very important agent activity or agent software, which runs on different devices. And you've seen a demonstration of that now today. And so that means you've got an overall view of your documents. You've got an overall view of who's interacting with them, where the old documents are the duplicates, as Ronan described, the rot, redundant, obsolete, and trivial. We can give you reports on that, duplicate reports, but we can also tell you who's interacting with those documents as well. So there's a live element. You're getting a complete picture. And that's the best of both worlds. So just a quick summary. So what we're talking about is the left-hand side of Ronan's two bubbles, if you remember, is scanning unprotected documents and classifying them and tagging them. That's an automated process because that's the only way to do it. If there's 150 million files, the only way to do it is to automate that. So we do that with our machine learning model. But then there's the live side where the users are interacting, just as I did in my demo, where I'm misclassifying, I'm getting things wrong, I'm taking a guess, I'm not sure what's going on. And something I want to mention just before I wrap up is we're building a lot of extra information into those dialog boxes that you saw, so that if you press on a help button, you're going to be able to, at the point where you've been blocked or you've been warned, get an explanation as to what the problem was. What did I do wrong? What should I have done? What's the reason for my for what I should have done? In other words, what's the point of classifying or blocking and not sending sensitive data? It might seem obvious, but there could be some very obscure policies and procedures or very complex ones for different standards of and regulations that not all users might immediately understand. And being able to get feedback right at the time in the perfect context is a very powerful thing to train your users and educate them. So we're not only educating the users, but we're also assisting them. We're giving them a backup so that we're training and we're catching problems. So I'd like to hand back to Ronan, who will talk for the rest of the presentation. So remember, it's the agent side and the scanning side, and you've seen a live demo of some of our agent software. So over to you, Ronan.
Thank you, Derek. That was good. I just want to take a moment to talk through some of the use cases that we are seeing, and I'll give a couple of live examples that we've seen in the industry. Obviously, one that stands out is the protection of intellectual property. We're seeing organizations as they're migrating to the cloud, as they're building a lot of data repositories in various different parts of the organization. How do they identify where that IP is? And a lot of that IP can be in a very complex structure. It could be a code base. It could be ingredients for recipes or drugs. It could be financial information. So how Gervisibility helps with intellectual property is you train the model. A good example would be we have a large pharmaceutical client in the United States. Their intellectual property is the gene therapy documents or the ingredients that they use to build their solutions. And they have the ability to train the machine learning model on their specific types of intellectual property and then scan across hundreds of different servers and endpoints to understand where that data is, that intellectual property, and then make informed decisions of how they protect it. You then obviously have your governance, risk and compliance mandates, whether it be GDPR, whether it be the California Consumer Privacy Act, or if it's a very specific industry vertical mandate such as TISAX, or even complex regulatory mandates from the US Department of Defense, such as CMMC, where organizations have to handle very sensitive information in relation to either supply or manufacture of different technologies for the military. We help with that, both from a live data perspective and a legacy data perspective. We ensure that your data loss prevention program works and it does not fail. A good example would be, we have a very large insurance company, about 150,000 users, based in Switzerland, and that company have really profound challenges around the amount of classification tags that they have to apply to data. So when their users, before they can save an email, or before they can send an email, or before they can save a document, they may have to decide on up to 70 different classification tags. What is the document? We simplify that by allowing the machine learning model, which has been highly tuned, to advise the user on what the classification should be with a very high degree of accuracy. So that fixes that problem. We also integrate with your Security Operations Center. I see on the call today with some of our colleagues from IBM. So we integrate with sophisticated technologies in the IBM portfolio, such as Guardium and QRadar. So we help the enterprise to close the loop in terms of bringing the data monitoring into the security conversation. We help to accelerate cloud migration. If you're moving or migrating to IBM's cloud, or if you're moving or migrating to Azure or to Amazon, we can help organizations do that securely and effectively, and expedite that process by understanding that data, by overlaying your data loss prevention capability, and by overall making an organization have better control of their data as they look at different solutions that are out there. So in terms of Gervisibility, I see the primary benefits for an organization are that, number one, your return on investment is much, much quicker. Your ability to look at your data estate and accurately understand it and protect it at scale. The best way to do that is to leverage machine learning to ensure your GRC, your governance, risk and compliance teams and standards are being adhered to, accelerating your move to the cloud, dealing with this huge problem of false positives. The best way to deal with that is to train a model, a sophisticated machine learning model, and have that model be the ultimate judge in terms of what your data is. Allow your staff to engage with the machine learning model effectively with proper oversight. And a good example of this would be, we do a lot of business in the Middle East, and they have a lot of challenges around the fine-tuning of the Arabic language for when you look at natural language processing, and specifically government agencies in Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates. By using Gervisibility, they have the option to classify the data manually and allow the users to train the model, and then to have oversight on that, which is very powerful. It's also important to highlight that the entire architecture of the platform has a security by design methodology. All of the data remains inside of your estate, inside of your data center, whether that be in the cloud, a hybrid cloud, or on-prem within your network. So we never touch the data, we never move the data. All the data remains in country, in your estate. And also it's very powerful because it will deal with multi-language simultaneously. So if you need to work across German, English, French, Arabic simultaneously, it has the ability to do that, and to do that at scale across massive complex network deployments. So I think that's covered. I've covered the benefits there, Derek. I'm going to hand over to Leonid in QBS, who are one of our very strategic partners for the delivery of Get Visibility in the Nordics and in Ireland and the United Kingdom. Leonid, over to you, my friend.
Thank you very much, Ronan. Thank you, Derek. So just to introduce myself, once again, my name is Leonid. I am CEO of QBS International. We are part of QBS Distribution Group. As a group, company operates for 33 years already, which is quite a long time. We have very good reputation as a reliable partner. Myself, I'm based in Ireland. Actually, we're based in the same city with Ronan and Derek here in Cork. We also have our headquarters in London, here in Ireland, in Germany, in France, in Lithuania, and in Sweden. So we're kind of covering the central and north part of EMEA. Get Visibility will play a very important role in our portfolio for GDPR compliance and governance. Even though this is a very new solution, personally, I believe that it will grow very fast over the next 2 to 3 years. So we decided to step in and have a conversation and represent Get Visibility in our markets. I really believe that it will be very successful. As a distributor, we're ready to support you with licensing, pricing, consultations, even with integration and technical support. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. You can see our contact details. You can contact directly me at leo at qbsint.com or to our main mailbox, info@qbsint.com. You can also see our telephone numbers. So if you need more information about us, how we can help, how we can support you with Get Visibility, please contact us, contact me. So I'll hand back to Ronan. Ronan, thank you very much.
Thank you, Leonid. A couple of questions here. Derek, how do you integrate with data loss prevention?
Okay, the integration with DLP platforms can be done in 2 ways. A number of the platforms expose an API, or which is a way that the software can talk directly to it. It's called a programming interface. We integrate to those. Software that works like that would be Microsoft's AIP, Azure Information Protection, or ForcePoint. And then the other way to integrate is by putting metadata tags into the documents, which we actually did during the demo earlier. And those metadata tags inform the DLP platform of the sensitivity and the type of document that they're working with. They're then able to activate their policies based on that. And that includes DLPs like McAfee, Semantic, and a bunch of others as well.
Okay. How does your platform manage multilingual organizations?
Okay, so that's the multi-language support. I had a slide on that, and how we do that is we build different neural networks based on different languages, and part of processing any unstructured document or unstructured text is reading the text and converting it into some kind of representation of what the people are discussing. In other words, the context. So we have built a state-of-the-art pre-processing step, which uses a bunch of natural language processing and quite a few neural networks. It's not just one. And these work together to reduce any document in any language to a particular mathematical representation that describes what the context is of the document. It also, in that step, anonymizes the document as well, because I mentioned anonymization in that same slide. So it's done very quickly. The document is processed very, very rapidly and converted into this anonymized state, which is just a mathematical representation. And we use that for the rest of our platform. So what we do is we have got these different language modules which convert it into this representation, and then we use that for the rest of the system. As Ronan, as you mentioned, just one point, Ronan, all the data does stay on site. We're not talking about any cloud services involved with this.
Yeah, okay, so you've just answered one of the other questions that came up. Can you comment on the training that's provided once it's deployed? How does that work?
So training can be seen in 2 contexts. One is the machine learning model training, and this is done automatically when people interact with the documents, or in bulk if our resellers, for example, work with a lot of our customers to look at some of the data and the classifications, especially to identify unusual new types of documents. So that's part of the training process for the machine learning. We also have a well-defined, extensive set of end user training, whether it's just end users working on the agents, or whether it's IT staff or security staff managing the platform, or whether it's a reseller that wants to know how to deploy it and how to build professional services around it. So training is into those two aspects. We cover both of them, Ronan.
Okay. Do you use any big data platform like Hadoop? And do you use Office documents?
So we do support Office documents. We have an agent that and plugins that operate both in the applications that are installed on laptops or desktops, as well as on the Office 365 web apps. We support both of those. But to your first question, we can export information out to Hadoop, for example, or Splunk, or Logstash, Elk, for example, an Elk stack. And some of our customers are using, or resellers are using exports of our data regularly for additional reports and ad hoc investigations and diagnostics and looking at what's going on with the data behavior. But we haven't used any of those platforms internally in our system. We have got a distributed database as part of our system, but it's not Hadoop.
Okay. Are you deployed via servers next to the data subscription-based licensing? ? So I'll answer that one. So we do deploy in servers, and that's within your estate, either in the cloud or within your private data center. And then for there's two parts of the puzzle. One is pointing the Gervisibility platform at your file shares, whether that be SharePoint, Dropbox, OneDrive, and NAS devices, anywhere where you have a data lake or a data repository. And then you also have the agent piece, which is sitting on the endpoint level or on the mobile device level. And both of those are connecting in our Synergy product, which is providing the symbiotic type feature between the end user and the machine learning model. So you're attacking the data from two perspectives, the live data and also the legacy data estate. The licensing is per seat, so it's a scalable model where organizations can scale the platform in line with their requirements. Although we do have some clients, we have a large insurance company in Germany, and they've recently, with KPMG, have taken Gervisibility for the migration of 10 terabit of data from their in-house data center for classification and migration to the cloud. So that's a joint approach by both Gervisibility and KPMG, and they've taken a once-off license for that corporate engagement. But the view is that they'll roll it out across the group when that's complete. A few other questions here. What are the infrastructure requirements, Derek?
Yeah, so we can start with a single virtual machine with reasonably medium-sized specs. We don't need any specialized hardware. So, for example, 8 CPUs and 24 gigs of RAM. It's a medium to large size VM, but it can also be split out in a number of smaller VMs as well. It's also easy to expand the system by adding new virtual machines to it. Those virtual machines can be run either in virtualization on hardware that you own in your data center, or it can be in your cloud, private cloud, or it can be, if it's in the public cloud as well. We just need access to a virtual machine. And we've actually got some deployments that mix them all together. So we've got some virtual machines in a private cloud, public, private, and also on-prem. And all those virtual machines operate together in a single cluster. So it's very easy to deploy. And we have a document for the actual requirements in detail. If anybody's interested, please just contact us. We can send that.
Okay. Does one need to prepare many files to train the machine learning model?
Ronan, would you mind reading that again, please?
Yeah, apologies. Does one need to prepare many files to train the machine learning model?
Oh, So no, not at all. There's actually zero requirement for documents to be made available to us for training. We've already got a machine learning model, a set of models that are pre-trained. They're ready to work on day one when the software is installed. And they've got over 3 years of knowledge, of experience and training behind them now, having seen millions of documents. So you can use that machine learning model as it is, without any training. What we do find it's sometimes useful if you've got a brand new type of document or a new type of compliance standard or an unusual interest in particular features of documents, that you can give us 100 or 200 document samples, positive and negative, and we can add that new feature to the system very quickly. But generally people take the out-of-the-box model and just turn on the ability for it to learn over time, and then they get an improvement in performance anyway.
Okay. Any plans on structured data discovery? I'll take the first crack at that one. The structured data discovery market is well serviced. We have a few of our colleagues from IBM on this webinar today, and we partner very strategically with IBM and very significant technology platforms such as Guardium, which we leverage for the structured database security application. So that's not a space we play in, but we are closely integrated with vendors such as IBM for that capability. Derek, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, Ronan, just one point, and that is that some of the resellers that operate under the QBS banner, which Leonid is representing, take our software. They would take an IBM Guardium, for example, and they would provide an overall solution to a customer that covers all of the data, regardless of structured or unstructured. So those solutions plus professional services give the customers a much, much better view of all the data in the organizations. And that's because these resellers understand the two different worlds and they merge them together for one solution.
Okay. Does your model use document clustering in the ML model?
Sorry, Ronan, you dropped out halfway through there. Could you read that again, please?
Does your model use document clustering in the ML model?
Yes, one of the steps in the machine learning pipeline does do document clustering or clustering into a mathematical space. I mentioned the anonymization. What we do is, as we transform the document from the raw text down to a mathematical representation, at one stage along the pipeline, those mathematical representations are effectively a point in a clustering space. We then take further steps on from that, but there is a stage where you could consider the documents that are similar to be in similar clusters in that representation space. So yes, we do use some clustering, but it's part of an overall process.
Can you generate keywords that can be used in DLP rules?
Yes, we have something in the lab about generating both summaries of documents, but also extracting named entities. We've done a lot of research into named entity recognition. And we've even got a part of the platform that looks at named entity density. And this is a useful indicator we've found for sensitive documents. A named entity might be something like a keyword for DLP. For example, it could be a chemical compound for a pharmaceutical company, or it could be a technical term for a hardware manufacturer, or it could be some important intellectual property keyword that is a good indicator of sensitive documents. It's not a silver bullet type of thing, because patterns and dictionaries can be taken out of context. But we do have the ability to find these named entities inside documents. So we can do that. It's something that we haven't rolled out because we haven't needed that for the clustering and the further classification. But we do have a stage in the pipeline where we've got the named entity extraction ready to go. So we can do that, yes.
Okay, thank you, Derek. I think that's all of the questions answered. So we should be able to wrap up just under the hour. I'd like to thank everybody for joining today's webinar. If you have any follow-up questions, please get in contact with us, or indeed with our partners QBS. And Derek, Leonid, thank you for taking the time to join the webinar today, and also thank you for all of those excellent questions. And I hope you, your family and your colleagues all stay safe in these crazy times that we live in. Thank you.
Thank you very much.